Hello from CREA, the Cadence River Education Alliance, over in Topsham, Maine. And we are back again today with another lesson for you about birds. Hi friends. So here's a mystery for you. I was in the car the other day and I saw a bird flying by with a bunch of this in its mouth. A big mouth full of sticks and straw and hay. That doesn't look very delicious for lunch. Why was that bird flying around with a mouthful of straw? You might have an idea. It wasn't to eat. It was actually going to use that to make a nest. Have you ever seen a bird nest? Look in this picture, in these bushes. Do you see that bird nest? They can actually be pretty hard to spot. But today we're going to look super up close together at some real nests. And we're going to try to figure out, how do birds make these nests? And then we're going to try it. So Carrie and I went into the Ecology Center at CREA today, and we got out all the bird nests, CREA's collection of bird nests. And my first question to you is, looking at all these nests, can you tell if bird nests are all made of the same material? So the answer is no. They are not made of the same material. There are lots of different materials here. And that's because depending on what habitat a bird lives in, it's going to find different stuff on the ground. For example, where does it look like this bird lives? So we'll try to give a close-up view here. Look at this nest. What are all these things? These are actually pine needles, almost all pine needles. So you can tell this bird nest was made by a bird who lives somewhere with a whole lot of pine trees where pine needles fall on the ground. And this, woven into the nest, is a piece of birch bark. Meanwhile, this nest, what materials do you see here? So I see a lot of this seagrass, this beach grass that sometimes you see washed up at high tide. This gives me a clue that this bird lived somewhere near the ocean. And guess what? I know it does because this nest was found in an empty lobster trap in the driveway of a lobsterman who lives right near the ocean. So this bird went down to the ocean, got some of that seagrass, and built its nest right near the ocean. What was this part in the middle? What was this? This is just dried up grass. So does anyone see any other materials that we haven't talked about yet that we could add to our list? I see one right over here in this nest. Let's see if we can get an up-close look at that. Do you see how soft and fluffy that is? So that soft fluff, do you have any ideas? Birds go crazy when they get this soft fluff. Where do you think they got it? Sometimes they use animal fur, but this is actually fluff from a plant. Can you think of a plant that makes fluffy? Think about a cattail. Have you ever seen a cattail? It's like a long, tall, brown hot dog plant. But then it gets puffy with all its seeds. These are actually the seeds of a cattail plant. So that bird went one by one and picked mouthfuls of fluff and added it to the nest. So friends, you might be keeping track of the different materials we're seeing, or maybe your teacher is making a list on the board. Here's some pictures and some words that I wrote in my notebook so far. And the reason this is helpful is because later when we go out and build a nest, a bird nest, this will remind us what materials to look for. And now check out this bird nest. What do you see in here? You see anything new? I see two new things new. leaves, so there's a lot of crunchy leaves, and plastic. Look, this bird nest has some plastic woven into it. Kind of crazy. So leaves, plastic, and then look on the inside. What is on the inside? That kind of dark brown part on the inside. It's almost like scratchy looking. This is a really important part of bird nests. A lot of birds use this. These are tree roots. Now I have to tell you, when I look in books and it says that birds make their nests out of tree roots, I've always thought, what? That makes no sense, because tree roots are really big and really strong, and a bird can't possibly pick up a tree root from its beak because the tree root is underground. But what they're talking about is when a tree falls over sometimes, whoop, and all the roots are sticking up in the air, there's little tiny, tiny tree roots, and those are the ones that the birds can go peck off with their beak. So here's one of my favorite nests, made almost entirely of tree roots and one other strange mystery material. Check this out. This is kind of funny. This is a blue jay's nest. You can see it only used how many materials? How many different kinds of materials do you see in this nest? I see two. I see one is this blue plastic, which is funny because it's a blue jay. And then I see these tree roots. So I'm going to hold still so you can get a really good close-up look at those tree roots. Because now you might look at this material. Now do you look at it and you say, oh, I know what you mean. All right, so we've got tree roots, dried up grass, eel grass, so beach grass, seed fluff from cattails, pine needles, birch bark, leaves, a little bit of plastic, some more rootlets. This is probably the most fragile nest I have in our collection. And I should mention that if you ever find a bird nest in the wild, you should leave it there, because birds usually come back. Lots of birds use the nest again next year. And you never know also if they might have more eggs later that season. So if you find a nest, probably best to leave it there. CREA has a special permit that lets us keep nests if we find them and we know they're abandoned. But for you, if you find a nest, probably just leave it there because the birds might use it again. Now check this out. This nest, I need a chimney because this nest grows in a chimney. So here's my chimney. So down inside the chimney, in the dark, dark chimney, there would be this secret little nest glued to the chimney on the inside of it. And what material, we actually haven't talked about this one yet. What material do you see? There's only one material that the chimney swift used. It's twigs, little pieces of twigs. And how many do you think are there? Think about that bird had to go peck with its little beak, and it had to fly back and forth and collect a twig and bring it back, collect a twig, bring it back. So it glued these together with its spit. I know that's crazy, but they glued their sticks together with spit. That's a pretty special way to build a nest. This nest, you recognize this. I bet you're gonna know it now. What material is that? That's those rootlets, the little tiny tree roots. Now here's a very different nest. What bird is very small and would need a very small nest and would have an egg only this big? This is actually the nest of a hummingbird. And this we can add to our materials list, one crazy new material, actually two. They do something for camouflage. See this little green stuff on the outside? That's called lichen. You've probably seen it growing on sticks before in the forest. The other thing I want you to see up close, and you can see it right at the tip, is they use spider webs to stick their nest together. Now, as you know, spider webs are sticky. That's how the bugs get stuck into spider web. But right there, they use that spider web. Can you see it right here? And one thing that's special about spider webs is it's sticky. That's perfect because it helps hold things together. But also, it's stretchy. So as the birds grow in the nest, this nest can stretch a little bit. Really good trick. So there's one last material that I want you to notice. Can you see this that I'm pointing at? This is actually mud, and birds use it kind of like glue. They put it on when it's wet, and then when it gets dry, it gets nice and hard and holds everything together. So my friends, here is your assignment. I would like you to try to build a bird nest. So you're going to need to head outside and see what you can find on the ground. You only want to collect dead stuff off the ground, remember? Dead sticks, dead leaves, dead grass, all dried up stuff, old seed fluff. You might try to find some little tiny rootlets, or maybe even some wet mud to make your nest even sturdier. So think back to those real bird nests we saw. What materials did those birds use? Collect all the materials that you think you might want, and then start trying to put them together in the shape of a bird nest. Some bird nests are pretty fancy, but not all of them are. When I tried this activity, I was amazed at how hard it was to get all my nest materials to stay together. It made me imagine, whoa, for a bird to do this using just their little beak and their feet, that is super amazing. So give it a try, see how it goes, maybe try a couple different materials, and see if you can get something that's shaped like a nest. Have fun out there building the nest. And remember, even if your bird nest doesn't come out that great, what might happen is a bird could find your pile of nest materials, and the bird might use your nest materials to build itself a real nest this spring.